And an APEC working dinner underway, attended by President Trump and other regional leaders. The U.S. and South Korea underscoring progress after talks today to finalize details of a trade deal signed earlier in July. Mr. Trump issuing a positive statement over dinner following a meeting with his South Korean counterpart, Lee Jae-myung. Officials on both sides earlier downplaying the prospect of making any breakthrough this week.
We had a tremendous meeting today with South Korea. I think the meeting a lot was determined, very much determined, and we made our deal. We pretty much finalized a trade deal.
Our defense also very much on the agenda of the Trump-Lee summit. Mr. Lee pledging to spend more on defense are seen as a response to the Trump administration putting more pressure on its allies to do more for their own security. South Korean leader seeking the green light from Washington for nuclear fuel to power conventional submarines. Seoul currently has no access to nuclear fuel, and this requires U.S. consent under bilateral agreement.
그래서 가능하다면 연료 공급을 허용을 해주시면 저희가 저희 기술로 재래식 무기를 탑재한 잠수함을 여러 척 건조해서 우리 한반도 동해 서해에 해역 방어 활동을 하면 미군의 부담도 상당히 많이 줄어들 수 있을 것이다라는 생각이 듭니다.
Mr. Trump is in South Korea for the final leg of his Asia tour. He was in Malaysia and Japan earlier, where he signed off on several agreements on trade. And more CNA senior correspondent Lim Yun Suk is in Gyeongju. Nick Harper joins us live again from Washington, D.C. And Yun Suk, that dramatic progress breaking this impasse on tariffs. That's from Seoul. Mr. Trump saying he has pretty much finalized a trade deal. What has been agreed?
Well, yes, it looks like a trade deal has been agreed, as many here had earlier said that they didn't think it was going to go ahead. But South Korea has confirmed that there is a deal now. And at the core of this deal is that the tariffs will remain at 15%. And this will be extending to the automobiles and the auto parts, which have been one of the most sensitive items for South Korea. And this means that South Korea's car exports to the United States will now be facing tariffs, which are the same as Japan and the EU. Now, other items are that were in the deal, aircraft parts and natural resources not produced in the U.S. will be tariff-free. And the question of how this will be invested, the overall $350 billion pledge has been broken down into $200 billion in cash investments, while the rest of that, the $150 billion, will be invested in shipbuilding cooperation. Now, the $200 billion will be invested in phases with a cap of $20 billion per year so that the funding doesn't shock South Korea's foreign exchange market. Now, the two sides also agreed that the shipbuilding portion, called the Make American Shipbuilding Great Again project, will be led by South Korean companies, including the guarantees and the long-term financing for the new vessels. Now, on how they plan to share the profits, apparently they agreed that it will be 50-50 until South Korea's principal is repaid. And, if it takes more than 20 years, then apparently the ratio can be reviewed. Now, South Korea says that, it can also adjust the payment timing if its currency markets turn volatile. Now, the two sides apparently also reached a deal where they said that there will be no more further opening of its rice or beef market. So South Korea is confident that it has fully protected its agricultural sector. Now the next step for South Korea and the two sides will be finalizing this legal text and setting up a joint investment committee to implement this deal.
All right, Nick, let's bring you in now. You heard Yun Suk there, and this was in fact true in the hours before, leading up to this, days before, leading up to this announcement from both the US and the South Korean side. There was a lot of doubt on whether such a complex negotiation could make any kind of breakthrough in just a few hours or less than that of talks. But in fact, that seems to have been the case. What has the US said about this deal with South Korea?
You're right, Wei-Su. I mean, this seemed like it was going to be a very tricky one to negotiate. I think it's worth bearing in mind, as we heard from Yun Suk there, things still need to be finalised. But the US president has essentially been saying a deal has been done. He said, we've made a deal, pretty much finalised it. I think it's worth noting the US president there suggesting that this framework still needs to be pushed forward to completion, with some of those trickier issues being dealt with. But on social media in the last couple of hours, he has boasted another win for the United States, saying bringing back trillions of dollars to the USA, a great trip dealing with very smart, talented and wonderful leaders. And I think that is very much the sense of the way the Trump administration is portraying this trip for the US president, suggesting that he is romping his way through Asia, making deals as he goes, all of them to the benefit of the United States. The White House has been pumping out press release after press release, very much talking up these deals and putting them in the best possible light, really suggesting that things could not be going better. Some of them here, the one that was put out just after Donald Trump arrived at the ASEAN summit in Malaysia. President Trump opens Asia trip to securing landmark wins for America, boasting the peace deals, the trade deals and the critical mineral deals that the United States White House said was game-changing for the US. They also said that Donald Trump has had a bold display of strength and unmatched deal-making ability. After that, heading to Japan, where the White House said it was a new golden age for the US-Japan alliance. So the White House, with these press releases and much of the coverage here in the United States, has been positive that the US administration has managed to secure these deals that had looked rather shaky, but also getting concessions from major US allies to the benefit of the United States. But I think one thing to note, that there is some grumbling here in the US. The US government shutdown continues. We're on to day 29. Domestic issues that the US president isn't dealing with during this Asia trip.
All right, Yun Suk, back to you there. Nick, talking about I suppose the deal making that is making the headlines, but worth reminding ourselves that the APEC summit has in fact meetings and talks have been taking place all of this week, and it goes beyond just deal making. In fact, dinner is underway right now. What else happens apart from Mr. Trump meeting Mr. Xi tomorrow? What can we look forward to tomorrow?
Well, you know, it really was a hectic day in Gyeongju, and it started with Mr. Trump arriving much later than expected, but all did go smoothly, except we have, you know, the U.S. President Donald Trump receiving not just a red carpet treatment here, but he was also given gifts that included a golden crown made especially for him. And he also received the Grand Order of this Mugunghwa, which is South Korea's highest decoration, and he becomes the U.S. first president to be receiving that award, which is been given in recognition of his contribution to peace on the Korean Peninsula, according to the South Korean presidential office. Now, not everyone here was happy with Mr. Trump or this APEC meeting. There were several protests here in Gyeongju with a bit of clashes between the protesters and South Korea's police. Though security here is at its highest alert, and there were some of the protesters who were led away by police. Now, these people are saying that they're against Mr. Trump being here, saying that Mr. Trump has just unilaterally imposed many of those tariffs, including to South Korea. And so, you know, lots of action here. And tomorrow, really, the highlight will be when Mr. Trump meets with Chinese President Xi Jinping. And also, we are expecting more anti-Trump, anti-United States, and also anti-China protests here in Gyeongju.
Well, thanks to CNA senior correspondent Lim Yun Suk live there from Gyeongju, and Nick Harper reporting for CNA from Washington, D.C.